Welcome to our channel Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. Aileen Wuornos was born on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan. Her early life was filled with hardship and pain. Her father left the family before she was born, and her mother was unable to care for her properly. Aileen grew up in a world that offered very little love or support. At the age of 11, she was abandoned by her mother and left in the care of her grandparents. Her grandfather was reportedly abusive, and she was exposed to violence and neglect from a young age. Aileen struggled with her schooling and often got into trouble. By the time she reached her teenage years, she had already begun running away from home and living a life on the streets. By the time Aileen was a teenager, she had become involved in petty crimes. She ran away from home frequently and lived in unstable conditions. At the age of 14, she became pregnant, but the child was given up for adoption. She dropped out of school and began engaging in prostitution to survive. Her life was full of danger, and she was exposed to violence, drugs, and exploitation. Despite the challenges she faced, Aileen displayed a sense of independence and resilience, although it often put her in harmful situations. In the late 1970s, Aileen moved to Florida, hoping for a fresh start. She continued working as a sex worker, and her life was still chaotic. During this time, she met a man named Louis Gratzfell, and they had a brief relationship. Aileen's life continued to spiral out of control, and she had frequent run-ins with the law for minor offenses. She struggled with mental health issues, including depression and personality disorders. By the late 1980s, Aileen's life took a darker turn. Between 1989 and 1990, she murdered 7 men in Florida. She claimed that the killings were done in self-defense, saying that the men had attempted to assault her. However, investigators found evidence that suggested some of the murders were premeditated. Aileen targeted men who picked her up while she was working as a sex worker. She shot them at close range and sometimes stole their belongings. Her actions shocked the community, as the violence was brutal and methodical. The first murder linked to Aileen occurred in November 1989. The victim was Richard Mallory, a man who had a criminal record. Aileen picked him up while working and later killed him, claiming he tried to assault her. The authorities were not immediately aware of the murder, and the case remained unsolved for some time. Over the next year, she continued her pattern, killing 6 more men. Each murder involved a similar method, often shooting the victim in the head. The victims were usually men who were alone when Aileen approached them. Aileen Wuornos' arrest came in January 1991. Law enforcement tracked her down after one of the surviving victims escaped an attack and provided information. When she was caught, she confessed to the murders, but insisted that she acted in some. Her confession shocked the nation and attracted widespread media attention. The case was sensationalized, and the public became fascinated with her story. Aileen's troubled past and her violent crimes made her a subject of both horror and sympathy. During her trial, Aileen's defense argued that she had been abused throughout her life and that the murders were a result of her traumatic experiences. The prosecution, however, painted her as a cold-blooded killer who lured men to their deaths. The trial was highly publicized, and Aileen's demeanor in court fascinated the media. She appeared withdrawn and emotionless at times, which led to speculation about her mental state. In 1992, Aileen was convicted of 6 counts of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to death and sent to Florida's death row. While in prison, Aileen struggled with her mental health. She expressed feelings of loneliness and despair and had difficulty coping with her life behind bars. She underwent multiple psychiatric evaluations, which concluded that she had borderline personality disorder and antisocial tendencies. Despite her claims of self-defense, the court found her responsible for the murders. She spent nearly 11 years on death row before her execution. Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002, at the Florida State Prison. She was 46 years old. Her final days were marked by media attention, with journalists and the public closely following her story. Her case sparked debates about the death penalty, mental illness, and the treatment of women in the criminal justice system. Many people questioned whether Aileen should have been sentenced to death given her traumatic past and mental health struggles. The story of Aileen Wuornos has remained a subject of fascination for decades. Her life has been studied in books, documentaries, and films. The 2003 movie Monster, starring Charlize Theron, portrayed Aileen's life in a dramatic and humanizing way. Theron's performance won her an Academy Award, and the film brought Aileen's story to a global audience. While the movie focused on her crimes, it also explored her troubled childhood, her relationships, and the circumstances that led to her violent acts. Aileen's case is often discussed in the context of female serial killers, a group that is far smaller than male serial killers. Experts have studied her motivations, noting that many of her crimes were linked to survival and self-preservation. Some criminologists argue that Aileen was a product of her environment and circumstances. She grew up with little support, experienced abuse, and faced constant danger. These factors, combined with her mental health issues, created a person capable of extreme violence. despite the horrors of her crimes. Aileen Wuornos' story also highlights the failures of society to protect vulnerable individuals. She was a victim of abuse from a young age and struggled with mental illness throughout her life. The justice system focused on punishing her for her actions but did little to address the root causes of her behavior. Many people believe that her story is a cautionary tale about neglect, abuse, and the consequences of untreated trauma. Aileen's relationships were often unstable and marked by mistrust. She had a brief romantic relationship with a woman named Terry Moore, who later testified against her during the trial. Aileen's interactions with men were complicated, shaped by fear, mistrust, and anger. She viewed many men as threats, which influenced her choice of victims. Her personal life was tumultuous, and she often acted impulsively, driven by fear and past trauma. Throughout her life, Aileen exhibited signs of extreme emotional instability. She struggled with feelings of abandonment, anger, and despair. Her mental health issues were evident in her behavior, both before and after the murders. She had difficulty forming lasting relationships and often reacted violently when she felt threatened. Her story has been analyzed by psychologists seeking to understand the minds of female killers and the role of trauma in violent behavior. Aileen Wuornos' legacy is complex. On one hand, she is remembered as a cold-blooded killer responsible for the deaths of 7 men. On the other hand, she is seen as a tragic figure, shaped by a life of abuse, neglect, and hardship. Her story raises important questions about justice, punishment, and the treatment of people who commit crimes under extreme circumstances. Scholars, filmmakers, and true crime enthusiasts continue to examine her life to better understand the factors that lead to such violence. Her case also sparked conversations about gender and crime. Female serial killers are rare, and Aileen's story challenged many assumptions about women and violence. People were fascinated by how a woman could commit such brutal acts, and her story became a lens through which society examined gender, power, and victimization. Aileen's life and crimes continue to be referenced in studies of criminal psychology and criminal behavior. The world has never forgotten Aileen Wuornos. Her story is often recounted as an example of the intersection between trauma, mental illness, and criminality. Documentaries and books have explored her life in detail, examining both her childhood and her crimes. She remains one of the most infamous female serial killers in history, and her story continues to provoke debate and discussion. Aileen Wuornos' life ended violently, but her story continues to captivate the public. She is remembered for the fear she instilled, the lives she took, and the tragedy of her existence. Her case reminds us that the path to crime is often shaped by circumstances beyond an individual's control, and that understanding the past is crucial to understanding the person. In the years since her death, people have continued to analyze and discuss Aileen Wuornos. Her story has inspired true crime series, documentaries, and films. Scholars debate the extent to which her childhood and mental health shaped her actions. Many argue that her life is a tragic example of how society fails vulnerable people, leading them down paths of destruction. Aileen Wuornos will always be remembered as a complicated figure, both a murderer and a victim. Her life story is a window into the darker aspects of human nature, the consequences of abuse, and the struggles of mental illness. While her actions were horrifying, understanding her life helps shed light on the circumstances that can lead to violence and tragedy.
Subscribe to Crime Loom and join us as we unravel more